I'm Ben James. We're joined by a very special guest today, Andy Howe.
Oh, thanks, Ben.
We've also got former Wales international John Devereux. Matthew Southcombe was right, and he wasn't too boastful about it. He was correct that George North is on the wing, and that's because of the form of Nick Tompkins. So let's, from one centre to another, let's talk about Nick Tompkins. What did you make of him last weekend?
Yeah, he had a great introduction. Fair play. He's certainly playing there as if he had his heart on his on his sleeve there, and he showed a lot of passion and took his chance very well. Yes, I was calling for him to sort of be in there from the start. So yeah, like I say, he's been waiting for his opportunity, and what an arena to sort of start.
What impressed you about his play?
I think he's all round. Obviously, he was limited. It would have been great if he had had a full game, but certainly, it's his angles, his defensively, everything was good. Apart from the first, he wasn't on for the first 5 or 10 minutes where there were a couple of line breaks, but his distribution was good, and like I say, he took that chance very well. Good feet. So it's typical. Like I say, you get your opportunity and you play on an arena and a scene like that. You're gonna really give it all, and he's got potential. He's got a good pedigree, and he's Welsh.
Indeed he is. What have you made about the rest of the team? Obviously not too many changes. As you mentioned, Tompkins and North, the only changes in the starting 15, and then a few on the bench. What do you make of the overall balance of that team?
Well, it's early days. It was a good opener, wasn't it? Yeah. To play against the Italians, they were very disappointing. Let's not beat around the bush. They're probably one of the worst Italian sides I've seen, and it was evident that Parisi not being there is a major factor. They got it wrong with playing maybe 2 10s, and there's a lot of talk about that, but we all know that they're strong up front, and they did test the Welsh pack in the scrum and stuff, but in terms of behind the scrum, it was limited, and it was a good performance by Wales, and like I say, Pivac will be happy, and the rest of the coaching staff, with that performance. But like I say, it was Italy. We were playing at home, and we're playing in front of a new coach. Everybody was trying to impress. It's a clean slate, and he got some good performances out of some key players. There were some selections I would have maybe gone with the other way for the opener. Like I say, I would have had Tompkins in there and Zammit in there as well. I think they were the ones I...
Do you think they missed a trick by not picking Louis Rees-Zammit for that?
Yeah, because of the game itself, because it was an easier game of, let's not throw him in against, France or England or Ireland, but sorry, Scotland, but, again, but yeah, it's... I think he's old enough, he's good enough, he's old enough, and I can only vouch for that myself. When I came on the scene, I was 19 years of age, and he's got no inhibitions, no fears, and he's playing in a top league and performing and scoring tries. So yeah, I would have probably gone with him, but it's nice,
A solid start then from Wales last week. He was perhaps in first, second gear for a lot of that match. You played in Ireland. How easy will it be to pick the pace up, if you like, and the ferocity for Ireland?
That's what they've got to do. I'm sure the whole week training now will be geared to that intensity level, and it's the weather conditions. If it's going to be blowing a bit over there, how difficult the old Lansdowne Road or Aviva can be in the windy conditions, and the Irish, they do like to test with bombs and the old Gary Owens, etc. But yeah, it's another level, and I think this team has been to the World Cup and performed well there, and they're more than a match. They can meet sort of Ireland head on and get a result, but it's going to be a lot harder and a lot closer.
What did you think of the Wales defence last weekend? Obviously they nailed Italy.
They did nail it. They should have scored, let's face it. They wouldn't have been a nil. First 5 minutes, there was a couple of line breaks, they should have finished those off. That's international football. Rugby, you've got to be clinical, and I was quite worried when I saw the amount of opportunities they had early doors, but I think we got to grips with it and showed up that those holes. And
could you see that in its different defensive system Wales employing out to when Sean Edwards in charge? Obviously we saw France the following day, and they were so aggressive in defence, which is unlike that.
Well, it was, and you could see Sean Edwards' mark certainly on the French performance, not just in general, defence in the middle of the park, but more so on the line. It was do or die stuff, and that had Sean Edwards' mark all over it, and maybe that's something that France have been missing, and it's a missing piece of the jigsaw which all the rest of the Six Nations teams are a bit, must be worried about.
Yeah, you played a lot against him in rugby league. Could he defend himself?
He didn't have to do too much defending. Giz, his nickname was Gizmo, and he scored a lot of tries. I remember one season me and him scored 35 tries each. He didn't have to do much for his 35. He just ran up the middle of the park and either Martin or Fire or who else would just give him the ball and he'd finish off under the sticks. But yeah, he was he didn't have to do much. But he's the same character though. He's a winner. He's very competitive. And you can imagine his passion coming through in his defensive sort of drills and talks, and obviously he's respected and feared and respected.
Okay, well, if you are just tuning in, this is the game line. We want your questions, so if you have any questions for John or Andy, get them in and we'll try and get through as many of them as we can. So let's take one of the questions. Graham Mitchell says here, you started out as a fullback. Was it easy moving to centre? Obviously we saw last week George North donning that 13 jersey, and it's a thing that he's done maybe 4 or 5 times now for Wales with sort of mixed success.
I actually started as outside half, played most of my career, believe it or not, as
George.
as a 6 foot outside half. I used to kick the leather off the ball. It's nice to see that the fullback for France kick the old torpedo kick 80 odd metres, and that was something I used to do a lot in my career. But yeah, I moved to fullback and then going to Cardiff College, moved into centre. So yeah, in terms of we all play different positions growing up, and the game is totally different from when I played it, obviously. But yeah, you get a bit more time at fullback. Certainly more time with the ball in your hand, and you've got the whole pitch in front of you. But yeah, George, look, there was always talk of George moving into the centre many years ago, but he stayed as a effective winger, and all can remember his performances for the Lions, in Australia, etc. So and for Wales, obviously, scored many tries. But yeah, it's.
Do you think that's the right call then? He plays on the wing instead of McNichol?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's good to have a bit of competition, and George will be now sort of looking over his shoulder. You've got Zamet as well, and there's a number of players who starting to sort of put their head above the, say, I want a piece of this, and McNichol's experienced it, so he'll probably want to get back there, and so yeah, it's up to George to put some of those performances in. I mean, Josh Adams has been fantastic finishing, and he does remind me of similar situation with Cuthbert and George North, when Cuthbert was doing all the scoring and George, he actually did steal the limelight from George in his early days, Cuthbert, and Josh Adams is really scoring and finishing some really some top tries.
Yeah, indeed. Jeff Harrington asks, what are your memories of Ireland-Wales games, and has Dublin become a less intimidating place to play these days?
My memories are a third cap playing in the old Lansdowne Road, and we won, and it was just international rugby goes so quickly, and there's certain things that you remember of games, but I remember just getting a ball, going on the old sort of hit-up, crash ball, what you call it, and off Jonathan Davies, missed pass, got tackled, spun around and flicked the ball over my shoulder to Phil Lewis, who scored just to the right of the sticks. And yeah, it was just one of them games we won. It was a great experience to win my third cap against Ireland in Dublin, and we'd always remember seeing games when I was a kid of the golden era of the 70s, where they'd go to Dublin and it'd always be a battle, and the wind would, like I say, the wind was always blowing there, and the crowd were vociferous, and it was a great place to go. And then playing in the World Cup, I think that was probably a great experience when we played them in the pool matches in '87 at Windy Wellington again. That was another day which was better suited maybe for Ireland because of the wind, but we did a job, and Mark Ring scored a try in that game, and we won.
You set that up, didn't you?
I popped a pass out over to him,
he moans about that pass, mate.
Yeah, it was a good pass, so he scored. Only he could have caught it apparently, so but he caught it and he scored. So.
Of course, your old mate Jonathan Davies, it was Jiffy, he was the outside half at the time, big buddies and all that. He was in here last week, he was dishing it out. No, was he any good as a player?
Well, he's got his knockers, but I've lucky enough played with him in rugby union or rugby league, and I think hands down he's probably the best player I've ever played with. Yeah, most talent. He had everything apart from his defence, which he wasn't renowned for. But again, going back to what he said about Sean Edwards, sometimes you play in good sides, maybe don't have to do too much defence. You can sort of hide a little bit, as you used to be able to do in rugby union.
Last week he was in your claim and I was hiding.
Well, I was looking for him under the table myself when I came in, but you could just beat him there, Andy, under that table. But yeah, he was just had everything, Jonathan. His rugby brain, his speed, he could kick the ball. And like I say, we've the history books and the videos of him scoring fantastic tries. Great examples. If any, young boys are out there watching the game and saying, well, you can actually beat somebody with sidesteps, not like my old sort of tactic was sometimes to defend people off the handoff, but Jonathan had a fantastic sidestep and a swerve, and off the mark he was lightning. That was his strength, obviously, is off the mark speed with a rugby ball in the hand at the end of the day. And wearing those old cotton jerseys used to get so heavy when they got wet.
So talking about your third cap in Dublin, was that the first time you'd been over to Dublin?
My third cap was the first visit to Dublin,
Eye-opening experience?
Yeah, I mean, we don't, as rugby players, you just go in, you train, you stay in. Wales always used to stay in an out-of-town sort of location in those days, and we stayed outside of Dublin, and then in the city centre after the match, So like I say, the game goes so quickly in international football. It's over in a blink of an eye sometimes, the speed, and even back then when the intensity levels are nowhere near what they are today, it still goes so quick, and that's your sort of thing you pick up.
When you play in rugby league and pro rugby league, were the intensity levels of that similar to what union's levels are today?
Yeah, of course. I mean, where rugby league differs in rugby union is that it's intense all the time. You're involved, everyone's involved all the time. There's no rest in place. Back in the days as a winger, getting freezing cold on the wing and, having a little rest, or if you're feeling tired, just go down the blind side in rugby union. You could have done that years ago, but now it's not. It's more, defence orientated and switched on and organised. In rugby league, when I played, it was literally no hiding spot. You could be running the ball 20, 30 metres, get tackled, turnover, and then you could be tackling 2 or 3 or 4 tackles in a row, which was remarkable if you could manage 4 in a row. I'm only ever managed 3, and literally couldn't breathe for half an hour after that. But yeah, that's where rugby league is different, or was different for me, and certainly for all the other ex rugby union converts.
It's funny because we got a rugby league question here from Mike Edwards. He says, is rugby league or union the best, and do you think the skill levels are higher in league given the sort of greater emphasis on protecting the ball? You've only got 6 tackles in which to do something. I
think they are very much closer. I think the skill levels in rugby union are high now. Don't think there are as many rugby union forwards who can handle and pass a ball as well as a rugby league forward can. So for 1 to 13 in league, I think they're all able to run and pass the ball very effectively, and they've gone from being big, heavy, 20-stone prop forwards to athletes now, and certainly rugby union is going that way. You don't see any Stuart Evanses out there or Brendan Hills up in rugby league, and it's more a quicker game, so that develops a different type of player. But yeah, it's great games, both games in their own merits.
And you were Galen about his first cap, or were you going to bring that up?
Yeah. What's your memories of your first cap? You're 19-year-old, you were a student, Cardiff College. Tell us how you found out you being capped. And what happened next.
Well, I had no idea, and that's hand on heart. I had no idea that particular day was the day that they were announcing the Welsh team, and I'd been playing well for college. Famously had a really good game against Cardiff in the old Schweppes Cup. We lost narrowly, outscored Cardiff. I had a very good game against Bob Ackerman. The old handoffs were on form that day, and I stole the headlines the next day. But then, subsequently, there's a number of other games after that, and I, as I've always done in my career, one game at a time, play, try and be the best you can. And I always remember just being in Cardiff with a number of colleagues of mine, where we were in college then, and we were in Cardiff Castle, and we were doing some some coursework there with the lectures, and out of nowhere this chap appeared. He was like Mr. Ben, and he just sort of said, "This is John Devereux here." It was a very important phone call for him. I was like, immediately I thought there was something wrong at home, because I didn't know that there was a Welsh team being announced. So I went with him quickly to this room, picked the phone up, and John Dawes was on the other end of the phone, and I honestly thought it was a wind-up when he said, you know, well, congratulations, you're being selected to play for Wales on the 18th of January 1986 at Twickenham. And I was like, couldn't believe it. So I rushed. You know, I was floating at the time. I was on cloud nine. I went into this big hall in the castle, and where all the colleagues were congregating. I just told them the news, and the lecturers, they said, "Well, I think that calls for celebration." So we went across the road to Womanby Street to the old Horse and Groom, and I think the old Western Mail Pier cameraman and reporters found me there, and got some great photos of pulling pints behind the bar, and all my college friends holding me up on the shoulders. Yeah.
So how drunk did you get that day?
It was an unofficial day off at college. The jungle drums went, and I think, well, it must have been hundreds of people from the college came down to. Yeah, I don't think I saw past 9 o'clock that night. Yeah, I think I was allowed to have a little celebration. Yeah, and as with all, you know, news like that, all you want to do then is play. You know, the next day. Yeah. Well, obviously not the next day, so I wouldn't have been in much shape. But yeah, you know, you want to be wrapped up in cotton wool, and you don't want to play any rugby. And I just couldn't wait for that game. It was unbelievable. Next best place to obviously first cab running out of Cardiff, but you know, Twickenham, the old Twickenham, the end of the old wooden stands was, and the atmosphere and the anthems and the whole build up. It was amazing. Life changing, really.
You had a huge impact on the 1987 World Cup inaugural tournament. Wales finished third in it, never bettered that result. Yeah. You scored a load of tries over there, created devastation with that handoff, known as a Dalek for the handoff and all.
Yeah.
What was that World Cup like, and is that handoff legal today?
Good question, that. In terms of starting with the handoff itself, it was a flat hand, it wasn't a punch, and I did have a sort of a piston-like handoff, which, you know, I developed since I was, 10, 12 years of age. So it was just another way of just, you know, pushing away from an opponent, and it developed into obviously being very strong. You know, it was quite effective, especially when you caught someone on the jaw or, or top of the shoulder. You were able to push away and get away.
Well, I can remember that the third place playoff with Australia when he laid out Michael Liner and Andy Slack, I think, the captain, in the semi-final against New Zealand. Got a try in that.
Yeah, well, that all led to a phase of events that led to the bomb that went up to Jonathan Davies. He then caught it. Came back, Ian Evans acting a scrum half, I think, threw the ball out. Mark Ring to Thorby. Thorby put a lovely handoff in, I think, on someone there, and Aaron Hadley scored in the corner. And we needed the kick from the corner to win the match, and Thorby stepped up and slaughtered it. I mean, he was great at that. You know, he is like, you know, everyone debates who's the best kicker. He's one of my best. Neil Jenkins, obviously, probably the best. But going back to the World Cup, it was. For me, I was still a student, by the way. I was like, and I had to sit my final year exams, and I was in going on to a World Cup. You know, what do I do? Stay home and do my exams, or just cancel that and just go on the World Cup? And luckily, the university allowed me to sit my finals in New Zealand. So I sat 2 during the pool matches in Wellington University and 1 in Dunedin, and I finished the day before we played the last game in the pool match against Canada. And that was over, so I could just concentrate on the rugby fully.
So it was a good job then. Your final exam wasn't the day after that third place playoff, because you've told me before that was one of the best celebrations ever after a rugby match.
Wow. Yeah, it was, because it was a culmination of, we were written off totally about, when we played against the
media, they would say,
Alan Jones can't be easy. The media were relentless. They embarrassed. They were just, why should we play against this, team of bums, basically? We were smashed by the best team I've ever played against, and it was in semi-final, All Blacks.
Do you still stand by that New Zealand team? To me, I still think myself that's perhaps one of the greatest New Zealand team I've ever seen.
They rank up there with the one of the best, the Wigan rugby league sides that I played against in the early 90s. As good as that, and they were. I mean, Wigan were professional. All Blacks were amateur, but they were prepared like a professional team. But yeah, that's it was a great World Cup, and like I say, that night after the third and fourth playoff game, we didn't go to bed. It was never done that in my life. We just drunk ourselves sober and picked our suitcases up in the morning and walked straight on a bus and flew over to Auckland to watch the final the next day. Well, that day. Yeah, but yeah, great experiences. Yeah.
Of course, then you went on to play in a League World Cup final, which is
I did. Yeah.
You were the only Welsh person. Was Jiffy was injured, was he?
And I got mixed emotions about it. I was on the bench. I remember Gary Conley got injured, and I came on at half time, I think it was, and I remember Phil Clark, who in rugby league you defend with certain like pairings, and I was centre, so I actually on the right hand side paired with Phil Clark, who was playing loose forward, I think, that day. Yeah. And Phil had bumped his leg, and I was standing a bit too close to him not too close, but I was close to him to sort of cover him a little bit more than I should have. And ball came out acting half. Kevin Walters, Brisbane Broncos hooker, and he just saw me just probably a little bit too. He just ran with it a little bit and sucked us and threw this lovely pass right across my face to a guy called Steve Renoff, who just went outside me. I just couldn't get his ankle to ankle tap him, and he just went down the touchline and scored. And I always think, potentially that's how we lost the final, but I always remember another situation in that game where it was sometimes not written in the stars. I remember we bombed the Australian fullback right under the sticks, and a guy called Alan Tate, who was playing that day as well.
Lions,
in 97, yeah.
And Alan jumped above everybody because Alan was such an athlete. He was so quick and he had fantastic, and he was up above everybody, caught it. And all he had to do was catch, he had it in his hands, and all he had to do was just land forward, and he was over the line, try, and we would have won, converted try. And as he came down, he was tipped just by a Kiwi, Aussie player just tipped him and off balance, and he landed on his back over the line, and they pounced on him and he couldn't score. And I just thought, if we were going to win, it was that moment, But sad. Made it to the World Cup final at Wembley. First time at Wembley, that was 92. But I was lucky enough to go back two other times, and I finally got my win in the third attempt against the Kiwis.
You had that painful memories of that Wales-Australia Rugby League match at Ninian Park with Mal Meninga. There's a bit of history there between you and him. Legendary Australia centre.
You're bringing up all these painful memories, Andy.
I just remember the scars, though.
Well, I've got 2 plates in my jaw from Mal Meninga. I mean, he was probably coming to the end of his career, or he's on the downhill slope from his career, but he was still a giant and an immense player and huge. I always remember that morning of the game, Scott Gibbs dropped out. Alan Bateman dropped out, I think, and Scott Gibbs wanted to move. He didn't want to play on that side, so I switched from the right side to the left side, and I was just coming back from injury, and my timing was out, and I always remember Mal Meninga running at me, and I went to sort of hit him.
Early in the game, wasn't it?
It was 8 minutes past 3. Yeah, it was 8 minutes into the game. 30th of October 1994 to be precise, Andy, and it's a memory that will always live with me, and the most horrific injury I've ever experienced in my life. I hit him, but as I sort of hit him, I turned at the last second, I don't know why, and I caught his shoulder. He dipped his shoulder at the time and caught it right square on the side of my jaw and smashed my jaw into 4 pieces.
That was a combo fracture as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, bone came straight through into my tongue and blood everywhere. I thought at the time the hit was so painful and precise and hard and felt like an elbow, but when you look at it on the video, it was his shoulder. It was a great dip of his shoulder, and that was the end of me. I was off, and 13 weeks later, I was back on the rugby field with titanium plates in my jaw.
You still got that?
Yeah, they live there. They'll go with me to the grave. Yeah.
I think we got time for one more question, then we'll do some predictions. So Julian Matthews asks, who were your toughest opponents in league and union?
Well, union is easiest. There's a guy called Philip Seller. I played against him a number of times. And
what a great player.
Yeah, I think pound for pound, he was so strong and fast. I mean, I think the first or second season, he was one of the first to ever score in every international, against every international side. And yeah, he was a special player. Lovely guy, quiet, didn't speak a word of English. Smoked like a trooper, him and Serge Blanco. I just couldn't believe it. But he just had this, his balance was amazing. He'd spin out of tackles. You think you'd have him, and I go, where's he gone? You know, I remember at Cardiff in that my first season, we could have won. We would have potentially won the championship, and I had him, and he just span out of the tackle, and he just managed to carry like 2 or 3 people on his back, which is, for his size, it's amazing. So yeah, he was good. He was one of the best. But in league, there's so many. You know, Gary Conley, to be honest, pound for pound again, a fantastic player. Very similar to Sella, not big, but very strong and fast, great rugby brain, and one of the best drinkers I've ever seen in my life, pound for pound, and able to just have a night out and just get on the rugby pitch the next day or training pitch the next day and perform. But Gary was good, Paul Newlove, and then some Aussies. You got Laurie Daly's, Mal himself, obviously. Runoff was special, played against him a few times. Played against Mal and Runoff when I played for Manly in Australia in '93, and I think Mal was probably remembered that at the game because he lifted me off the floor with his forearm that day, Mal Meninga, and he got cited for 2 games when I was playing for Manly against Canberra Raiders. But
it cost him money as well, didn't it?
Cost him, but he was captain. He lost he had two games banned for. He was cited basically after the match. I just played it down. I said no, because our coach at Manly was a guy called Bob Fulton, who was the Australian coach. So I just didn't want to say he deserved it. I played it down. But anyway, he got cited. He had 2-game match. He missed a test match against the Kiwis. He's captain as well, so he probably hated me for that. But he lifted on. I went to tackle him because I was a very upright and sort of smother tackle people, and I went to tackle him and under his sticks, and he just lifted me off the floor with his forearm. Huge forearm. He used to wear this big arm guard on it as well because he'd broken his arm a couple of times, and right under my chin.
It was like a cosh, wasn't it?
Right up in the air, flew backwards. I got up, and it didn't roll around like some of these footballers do. And and he just press hounded me after the match. Whoa, what do you think about that? Do you think he should be banned? It's like, no, played it down. No, fine. No, it's rugby.
Right, and then final question, I guess we'll end with some predictions. So let's start with Ireland Wales. How do we see that going?
Oh, it's a tight one. Yeah, we've had a good start. Lots of points. Ireland have had a test. Yeah. If Horgan dropped that ball, could have been a different game. But it's kind of like home advantage sometimes. If it's a game that's tight like that, sort of just edge it, and they're a good side. But I don't know. This Welsh side, hopefully the confidence is still there from the World Cup and last week. So heart says Wales by very close.
Always follow the heart.
I'm going to go slightly the other way. I think home advantage be decisive. I think Ireland are going to be fired right up for this match because of what happened to them against Wales in Cardiff last season when Wales really hammered them to win that Grand Slam. Weather forecast not great that afternoon. No. Could favour more. I'm a bit worried about the Welsh scrum and where the Irish can do some damage. Wales going to need to be really disciplined over there because the Irish drive in line out. They cannot give any daft penalties away, which has cost them in Dublin in the past on many occasions. I think I will reserve judgment on Wales a bit because last week comfortable victory playing first to second gear. Let's hope hoping to see the real Wales this weekend, and if they can produce that, then they have got a decent chance to be a 50-50 game. But I'll go for Ireland.
Do we see England getting the Calcutta Cup back, or is it going to be another tough week for Eddie Jones? Could be.
So again, wounded animals, how they react. Has he got unity there in his squad? We don't know. What is there? Something behind the scenes we don't know about? Is this Saracen saga? Is it all just spilling over? He's made some changes, positive changes. So they got a lot of power. Yeah. And so have France, Sean Edwards must be licking his lips looking at that team to, and they got, he had a great defence with Wales with not such big players, but, France are like huge players. But yeah, England, I think, they'll probably just edge that one.
And France beat Italy, yeah.
Yeah. Quite easily.
Agree on that one. I think that Devereux has raised some pertinent points about England, what's happening behind the scenes, Sazs, etc. Which could be valid. It might be a bit disharmony in the camp because players from other clubs effectively were in the pay packet because Sazs was winning titles, so getting the bonuses. So we don't know what's happening behind there. I thought last weekend that England's power was a bit off, though some big name players like Farrell, Itoje had probably their worst games. They couldn't hold on to the ball. Maybe it was just one of those games. But I fancy Scotland for this match before the championship, actually. So I'm going to stick with them. I thought they played really well against Ireland, with a bit unlucky. If they can cope with that England power, I think Scotland will win this match. And you could argue then that Eddie Jones is perhaps one defeat away from getting the push.
Wishful thinking.
Very wishful thinking, maybe. That's it.
I don't want him to leave mine because he's fantastic for the media and everything he says.
Yeah. Jose Mourinho, he's good for the media.
There we go. I think that's it for today's Gain Line, but we'll be back again, same time, same place tomorrow.